part of the WEGO Health team, and I represent about 65,000 patients that are influencers within their communities. 65,000 patients across 120 therapeutic areas that engage with their constituents, their community, every single day, writing about migraines or MS or Crohn's or myeloproliferative neoplasms, which I had to practice in the mirror for about a week before we say it. Rare conditions as well as common conditions like diabetes. And these patient influencers want, what WEGO Health does is we support them with information, tools, programs that allow them to do their best work online, which is to volunteer and inform patients. In being with WEGO Health for about 7 years, what we've learned through surveys is about 70% of them want to engage with you. They want to engage with industry, and they want to help you tell your story. They want to help you distribute information and get information out about treatments. They want to help you with insights and provide you feedback about what it's like to have a rare condition or a disorder or some sort of issue that they're navigating in healthcare. And so that's what WEGO Health is all about. We have 2 health activists. We call them health activists. You might call them bloggers or Facebookers or tweeters. But because they don't all blog, we call them health activists. We have 2 health activists that have taken their health activism to the hill, that have gone from patient activists to political activists. But before I bring them up, I want to tell you a story. I think I got your attention. It's about a cycle, a curve. And if you talk with people who have chronic condition or are navigating a serious healthcare issue, in the research that we've done over the past 7 years, what we hear from them is that life is like taking the exit ramp all the time. You have to be in constant connection with not only how you feel, but how you navigate health. Treatment, finances, life. When do I tell the person I'm dating I have a chronic condition? How do I pick a wig after chronic illness or chemotherapy? How do I fire my doctor? How do I find the right doctor? These are issues that are ongoing. It's this cycle. And as they learn their condition, they slip right into another cycle. There's a life change that happens. And they go right into another cycle, another vortex. And then you go online to connect with other patients and just post like this. There's more in the mirror than my pain. There's more in my life than my pain. And what lies behind it is beautiful. This post was written by a woman named Emily. She's about 20 years old when she wrote this. And she was at Florida State, and she's dealing with RA and extreme pain. And what's interesting about Emily is that she not only was talking about her pain, but talking about, what we mentioned a minute ago, treatment issues, financial issues, how to overcome dealing with this healthcare dilemma. And in her blog, in a fairly short period of time, she went from a 20-year-old kid in college navigating a pretty serious condition to being followed by many with her blog called Chronic Curve. She wants to empower, advocate, and educate others. And this is her life mission. And this is very much like the life missions that we see every day at WEGO Health with patient advocates like Julie and Michael today. And thousands of people follow patient influencers. When we did a survey back in 2008 with technical assistance from the FDA, but they helped us design the survey, write the questions, analyze the findings. We were both surprised to learn that the average reach of a health activist is about 15,000 consumers every single month. And there's lots of newbies, so that 15,000 continues to shift and change. These are the new media journalists. These are the folks that I think you want to connect with, to tell a genuine story, to learn more about their condition. And there's lots of evidence. I mentioned that we have been able to engage and secure permission from about 65,000 patient influencers. But globally, there's about 1.2 million that we can identify. So they're out there. And when we've done research, we were doing research in a diabetes product, and I had a patient influencer say, I will volunteer my time to any pharmaceutical, medical device, biotech company that wants to do advertising with real patients. I will do the casting for them. I don't want to see actors anymore. And I think our industry has taken a lot of steps. We've gone beyond actors and having real patients in our materials, which is great. But I think in the world of PR, public relations, and of course, advocacy, beyond patient advocacy, but political advocacy, the voice of the patient is great. More research. This was with about 2,000 patients, not patient influencers, but the folks that follow the patient influencers. 85% said online communities, discussion groups, and other interactive sites play some role in my healthcare decisions. We saw these stats earlier too, right? We heard about shareable content and authenticity and being able to engage with patients and patient centricity. Well, I think we need to put patients in patient centricity. You know, I'll sit in boardrooms or in meetings and you hear about patient centricity, but what is that? I think the patient needs to be not only at the center of it, but part of your voice in telling your story. And even the industry has now stepped up and noticed. This was February last year, when Medical Marketing Media said they're becoming a new key opinion leader. Savvy influential patients have pharma's attention and are growing relationships with industry online and off. So we know the industry has now seen what it's like to engage in the world of social and how it's not easy to navigate the legal issues and it's not easy to navigate some of the implementation details, but it can be done. And I would propose it should be done with, if not patient influencers who really can speak on behalf of their community. So speaking on behalf of the community, Michael Fernandez, focusing in migraine, Julie Flygare, focusing in narcolepsy. Thank you for coming today. I just want to recognize that both of these guys, Julie came from the West Coast. Michael, obviously, having some issues getting here, but he didn't come for the thousands of dollars that legal health gives him. No. He came here to be a voice to community and to help you better understand what it's like to engage with patients. So get your questions ready, please. And I just want to thank them. When Michael was putting on his sunglasses earlier, I said that he looked like a rock star from LA. So he's going to break out into a rap in a minute now, I just know. Oh, and by the way, I'm related to John Adams. So, yes, I have the baldness and the bad eyesight, but I'll be watching your tweets. So Michael, why don't you tell your story? I have your slides queued up. But first, we're just going to hear about their stories and let us learn a little bit about them and what they've been navigating.
Okay, first I wanted to say that really passion comes from pain. And when you're feeling a lot of pain, you feel you have to do something about it. And as we saw earlier, a lot of men don't do anything about it, unfortunately. That's something I'm trying to change, especially by going to the Hill and trying to get more money for research. But one way you can tell a passionate patient is by speaking to them. By talking to me today, you can tell, I'm a passionate patient. I really care about what's going on. It brings tears to my eyes to see what happens to other patients. And you can hear the shakiness in my voice just talking about it. It gets me fired up. And that's what you need to go to the Hill. You need to get fired up and you need to go talk to these representatives like a real patient. Let them know how much pain you're really in. I personally suffer from a terminal illness as well. And I've overcome that by working with other patients, having a support number for them to call, and helping people when they're suicidal, because it changes their lives. And it changes my life. It's all that keeps me alive, to be honest. So other patients are really what keeps me alive. Helping patients is what keeps me alive. And the 70% of companies that do genuinely want to talk to patients, like we talked about earlier, aren't reaching the patients. and we're seeking your help. So we're extending our hand to you, and we're ready to help you, especially those of us that are working by ourselves, like me and JP Summers and Julie here, who aren't necessarily working with a huge organization. We aren't CEOs or VPs of anything. We want to work with the pharma organizations to show people that they aren't all bad, that things aren't horrible in the pharma world, that you aren't just out to get our money, you know? We want to change the vision of the pharmaceutical industry in general and show that passion turns the patient into an advocate. And advocacy is really what matters here. That's what we're here to talk about. And that's what we need: more advocates, more male advocates and more female advocates. And we need them for all conditions. Patients need to know that they're not alone. That's one reason why I push pharmaceutical industry filming more videos with real patients, like Bob said, less actors, because we need to see real patients in real pain, and we need to see them living their real lives, and know that this is, the patients aren't alone. This is something that needs to be taken care of. My rare illness is a 1 in 1.5 million diagnosis. It's like being struck by lightning. There's no cure for it. There's no cure in sight, and there's really no medication I can take for it. And they eradicated the medication I could take for my migraines. So I'm open to any pharmaceutical company helping me. Heck, I joined the Vasculitis Foundation, and I hold 3 nonprofit jobs because I want to help that bad. I work for the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network to try and get into clinical trials so that I won't die in 15 years. Really, I want to work with the pharmaceutical industry to change my life.
And Michael, what was your big learning in going from patient advocate to political advocate? What was the thing that you didn't expect to learn?
What I didn't expect to learn really was how much you can influence the representatives just by going by yourself with maybe 2 people. I went to Headache on the Hill, and we changed everything. We got $2 million, $3 million more for migraine research just because we went out there for 1 or 2 days and scheduled appointments with representatives. Any of you can do that. Anybody can do that. Any patient advocate can do that. But, you really have to have the drive, and you have to let the pain motivate you to do it. And you have to get up and do it. You have to struggle to get up and do it every day. Continue to hassle them and bother them until they give you the money for that needed research.
So Julie, let's turn the microphone to you. And I know that you're an author, and your book came out recently, Right Away, while dreaming, and you've been quoted in multiple areas of the press and multiple places, have your own blog. But tell us a little bit about your journey, and tell us about the advocacy that we're doing.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Michael. I'm so excited to be here today. I was in law school when I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, so I ended up studying health law and health policy and FDA law, which is a really good background, but ultimately felt that logistically, really to make change for narcolepsy, you need to change people's hearts before you could ever get to their minds. And so after I graduated from law school, decided to write a memoir to really try to open people's eyes to the real experience of having narcolepsy. And in doing that, I started to get a lot of media attention, which was really different for me. I was very quiet and kept narcolepsy to myself. And now, 7 years later, I can't even imagine that I've gained so much through all the different publicity. I feel like once you start advocating, you catch an advocacy bug. It's the best disease I have. You just can't stop yourself from talking about it. Once you do, it adds so much value to my life. I started my website 4 years ago and started with a blog, Now I have a video series with they're just about a minute and a half to explain different aspects of having narcolepsy and treatment, and different tools on there, personal stories, events, policy updates. I serve on the NIH Sleep Disorder Research Advisory Board as a patient perspective leader, and led a big FDA initiative, which I will talk about a little bit more. A few highlights of some of my advocacy. Created the first mobile app for narcolepsy, and I'm proud to say we have over 800 downloads, which I guess is above average in this line. And created the first scholarship program for students with narcolepsy, which is something that eventually I'd love to see if we get some sort of pharma interaction with as well to boost that. And the infographic, I created the first infographic for narcolepsy as well. This is my new nonprofit, Project Sleep, and we've hosted sleep walks across the country, which pharma has come and supported. The local reps have come to some of the different events across the country. About this time last year, I started the Narcolepsy Not Alone campaign, which I just stood in front of the camera and said, hey, I have narcolepsy and I'm not alone, and asked other people to do the same. And in the last year, we've had over 1,000 photos from all 50 states and 39 countries around the world of people showing that they have narcolepsy as well. I led this FDA initiative. I'm sure if you are familiar with the Patient-Focused Drug Development Initiative FDA started, saying it is important for them to listen to patient perspective in creating clinical endpoints that are meaningful to patients. And narcolepsy was selected as one of the 20 disease areas that they would focus on. And so actually in putting that together, we created a team of leaders across the community from different organizations and held webinars to help educate the patients about the FDA process and what you can expect from FDA and what you can't, and help them with some of their communication skills. And it's got a lot of press and interest from the pharmaceutical companies as well. So we were able to, with an educational grant from a pharmaceutical company, help advance that as well. I wanted to just bring up 2 experiences as inspiration. I was able to work with a pharmaceutical company that they wanted to do an educational video on narcolepsy and give them some input as they were developing the content, which was very helpful, I think, for them because some of the ideas that their media company had come up with I found offensive, and I think other people did too, so they end up selecting a really good, putting together a really great educational advertisement, and I'm really proud to be a part of that project. People are watching the ad now on TV, and patients really feel like it speaks to their experience. And I think that, not to say that it was just me, but they asked other patient influencers that really help capture the true experience, which is ultimately going to help them with what they want to do is raise the disease awareness. You need the words that actually resonate with actual patients. And also we had a very big PR win recently. Honda had put out an ad with an inaccurate perception of narcolepsy, and the power of social media is just incredible. I started a change.org petition on a Saturday around, 3 a.m. when I finished it, and within 36 hours we had over 2,500 signatures, including a lot of sleep doctors as well as patients and Honda employees. And Honda on Monday morning actually, they actually answered the phone when we called. I talked to Honda America's PR representative, and they said they apologized and they actually worked to take the ad off the air completely, and now are working with us to create a narcolepsy PSA, and they've actually asked me to serve as a spokesperson in the ad. And this was just really incredible. I guess I've worked with pharma and seeing a lot more standoffness, and like someone mentioned before, that who do you talk to? Who's responsible for my relationship with a pharmaceutical company? I hear from different people at different times. So it's been really neat from a different industry to work with Honda's PR director, and now we went from having patients say, I will never buy another Honda, I want to trade in my Honda, I hate Honda, and now that we're creating this PSA with them, patients are so excited and ready to say, I'm so proud I own a Honda, now I want to get a Honda. So, if you think that patients might have I know there's a lot of trust issues in our area with pharmaceutical, and that you really can, if you can engage in ways that make sense and meet your regulations, that patients they want to like you, and they really do want to work together to try to raise awareness. Thank you.
Excellent. I don't know about the social media thing. I think it's going to catch on. That's great. Thanks for the story. So before I go into my questions, and I've prepared a number of questions, I'm wondering if anyone in the audience has any questions. Because this really was the opportunity to bring these voices here in the building and let you guys ask any questions you want on how to engage, what's the appropriate way to engage, how do a PR and public affairs group connect with health activists. Any questions? Great ones. Yeah.
Thank you for coming today. My name is Christy Poole. One of the things that I think people here have been talking a bit about is the difference between the way communicators look at things and sometimes the way people who are looking at it from the perspective of legal or regulatory are looking at the same issues. Have you ever spent time with legal or regulatory folks at a pharmaceutical company, or do you only know people who are the communicators and medical and advocates?
For one of the initiatives, we actually sat in a room with some people that were on their regulatory team, and it was really interesting. It's a good perspective to have because you had some voices saying, well, it was at the beginning of a patient program, and the regulatory representative saying, nope, can't do that. And so, and having studied FDA law and health law, I understand that perspective a little bit more. I just don't think there's enough education in our patient community about that. So when we don't hear anything, we assume that the standoffishness is bad, when necessarily maybe it's something they actually really can't talk about. And there's just not a lot of education around that.
And we've learned as a WEGO health team that usually the concept approval process goes like this. The first meeting is, you'll never be able to do this. And then after the second or third meeting, with some guidelines in place and some guardrails laid down, you can do it. It might be adjusted or in some way revised, but the core of the idea can be executed, which is pretty cool. So I think a lot of healthcare organizations, pharma, device, et cetera, are learning to execute. Any other questions? Come on! I'll delay the cocktail hour. I swear, I'll do it.
Hi, my name is Janine Pilla, and I'm from DNA Communications. One of the things I've been working with some of my clients is working with them to try and convince their legal and regulatory teams to begin engaging with patients and bloggers and what I'm calling digital patient advocates. My question for you is, if a pharmaceutical company is going to reach out to you, and you haven't had any interaction with them before, how would you want that first interaction to go? I mean, what is the best way for them to reach you? And in their first words to you, what do you want to hear from them? What do you want to talk to them about?
Well, I want them to be like a normal person. I think sometimes we think, I'm just a person too, so I have other interests like running. So if someone says, oh wow, I'm a runner too, or they like one of my articles and have a comment, we're just people. So really, any way of engaging like that and realizing that just supporting us, I think, is a really good first step before you have an ask. So at one point, I received an email from someone I'd never met. I think it was through a third-party company working on communications for a pharmaceutical. And they said, "Dear Jessica," which is not my name, it's Julie, and then proceed to have an ask. Here's our press release, and don't you think this new patient program is so wonderful? And we'd love if you, sent us information out via your blog. Wouldn't this be so helpful? It was clearly a program message. The person didn't even know I'd actually helped create that program with the pharmaceutical company, so I was very aware of it. And missing my name is not so genuine. So just really tracking those relationships very carefully. I think if you could start from the beginning, almost like client relations for lawyers, there's a limited number of these really big patient leaders in each community you can usually highlight and find and know who's responsible for that relationship and make sure that's the point person for everything. Because I don't always think that the pharmaceutical company knows the different people that are asking me questions. And this is all usually volunteer on my time, so it'd just be nice if there was a single point person that's responsible for that, and just being a person.
I'd say I just want them, really the first communication I'd like to be by voice, to be honest. I'd like it to be a phone call. I think it's all too rare nowadays that everything's done through email and you don't get, you know, to really talk and get to know each other, you know, really personally, and get to know if you want to work with that person or not, if you fit well with that company. I think that needs to be done more. But other than that, I agree with everything Julie said. You know, I just want to be treated like a normal person, have a normal conversation, and see where we end up at the end.
And I was at an event with multiple health activists, and afterwards we were hanging out in a group, kind of like you might be hanging out with your friends and, you know, sharing a pizza or drinking beer or whatever. And we started talking about the horror stories of connecting with PR groups. I'm just being honest, I'm being transparent. And everyone there had the wrong name on the, you know, on the letter to them or the press release that was targeted to a specific category that they're not part of. And so I think the way it starts, and Jessica, I think you said this, Julie said it first, which is, you know, connect with them with a give before you're asking for something. And I mean, we don't have time, right? Especially as organizations, we're moving fast, and all of a sudden we're in charge of something, and we have to get the word out. You have to dig that well before you can drink from it. And so you have to dig the well now and get to know who the influencers are and connect with them, just learn from them. Roche did it first with the diabetes summits that they had, and they didn't ask for anything until like year 2 or 3.
Hi, I'm David Kine. So just another question along the same lines. Do you feel, so if you're approached and it's about a give before any kind of ask, do you always feel like it's completely transparent as to who's approaching you, why, what their motivation is, what drug they make? Is that always apparent right from the beginning? And if not, how important is that?
Well, I think it's extremely important. I would want to know that information, otherwise then I would feel tricked. So, you know, I usually feel like people know enough to tell me that they're with a pharmaceutical company. And I think some really honest discussions, either with patient leaders or with advocacy groups in trying to find that common space of interest is really important. And knowing that even really educating patients about unrestricted educational grants that they can receive, and that you're not going to, I think there's this fear of the pharmaceutical companies going to control everything and, you know, take over the voice, when I've had some really great experiences where that's not true. It's really just about disease awareness, and we don't have to be so scared of, you know, that conversation, but really just helping to educate the patients as well, if you can, about what your interests are, and if there are some common ground that you can work on.
I guess I'd say be as transparent as you can with patients. Be as truthful as you can, as open as your legal team will allow you to be, and the patients will respect you back. And that's how you'll get the most, you know, patient advocates working for you, the most sincere advocates, the people that aren't looking for a huge paycheck but are actually looking to help others. And that's exactly how you'll find them, by just being honest.
So we can only take maybe 1 or 2 more questions. We have one over here.
This is maybe 2 parts of this question. First, from your perspective, I work for a company. Obviously, we have agencies that work for us. Do you guys want to hear first from the company? Is it off-putting to hear from a third-party, actively Catholic company? And then the second question, which is somewhat non-related, is as communications practitioners, we often try and kind of aggregate voices. So a lot of times our inclination is to group, you know, offer to group people together. Is that something that you, again, kind of find off-putting, or is it helpful if someone comes and says, hey, I also work with 5 or 6 other people who you also might already know or might want to connect with? Is that too intrusive, or is that a good approach?
what was the first question?
First was working in groups, and the other is, it doesn't matter who reaches out, a third party.
Oh, yeah.
Or a pharma company. Or
Reaching out as a third party really wouldn't matter to me. It doesn't matter who contacts me as long as they're genuine about what they're saying and truthful, and they represent who they're saying they represent. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah. I mean, what we've been hearing as a WEGO health team is that it doesn't matter who reaches out to them as long as it's transparent and honest and genuine, and that it's not an ask right away, which sometimes that can happen. And the other thing too is that we usually advise organizations that engage with us not to go beyond one health activist, because sometimes these folks are ill and things can happen. I can't tell you how many times in the video shoot we've had to find someone else in less than 24 hours. So to engage with multiple not only is good for you, but it's also good for the community, because there's multiple individuals in any one group. In diabetes, we've identified and engaged 3,800 patient influencers. So to have one or two it's okay, it makes it more manageable for you, but the reality is there's so many more that go beyond the blogs and go deep into the specialty discussion groups. It makes sense to connect with one-on-one.
I'd just like to follow up. I guess I have a different perspective. I feel like it would be good to have a point person. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now too, so just watching, even as the pharmaceutical company is so dynamic and things change, I've been passed off so many different times to different people, and having different third-party organizations that I would, and not that I don't mind talking to them, I would like a point person that just is aware of who is talking to me and who is not, because I also find my time is valuable and have a full-time job on top of all of this. So just having, often I hear from the pharmaceutical company, make sure you have if you're working with an organization, have one point person to be in contact with the pharmaceutical company. So I think it goes both ways. And definitely having, different voices. I do hear sometimes the perspective of the pharmaceutical company a little bit worrying about, in our area, why don't the organizations get along better? We want the organizations to get along and to work together on everything. And I would say just don't worry too much about being our parent and making us all happy, but trying to find us where we are and what our strengths are. So if one organization hosts a great conference, really helping them with that. If one organization is really great at something else, finding the strengths in the different players, because usually there are different players for a reason, and people are doing different things.
So one last question. If you could, like a magic wand, change the behavior of everyone in the PR and public affairs and communications world within the industry, whether it's pharma or device or biotech or whatever it might be, if you could change one behavior of everyone in the wave of a wand, what would the behavior change be?
I guess it would be direct contact and transparency, like I said earlier. That would be all I need from a pharmaceutical company. And like Julie mentioned, a point person. That's crucial, absolutely crucial to know who you're talking to and who to contact at these companies so that you guys can get these advocates and get many of them, like Bob said.
I would say not to be shy, and that really looking to the people. I find it so inspiring when you hear about different areas of pharma that are really trying to do more and pushing the envelope and see really where the boundaries are with FDA and regulations, because I think things are just going to have to, having this great PR with Honda, I just never thought we would hear from Honda, ever. I didn't think I would ever talk to a real human, and seeing that there's such a success story in there and there's trust can be rebuilt. So staying positive and trying to find those relationships.
Great. So I just want to thank ExL for having this panel here today. I really appreciate that. I want to thank all of you for being so engaged. We have a really active center group, so let's hear it for the center. And I want to really thank you guys for coming today.